All right, appreciate you guys' patience. So today we're going to talk about managing queuing to decrease temporal processing. If you're confused about what all that means, it's okay, we're about to get into it. So first let's get into some definitions. So a queue is an organized group of people waiting for a service. This can be a ride, this can be the Chick-fil-A, this can be the restrooms. Your service rate is the rate at which people are pulled from the queue, so maybe getting on the ride. Arrival rate is the rate at which people enter the queue. So if your arrival rate is higher than your service rate, your wait time increases, and if your service rate is higher than your arrival rate, your wait time decreases. Temporal processing is your guest's perceived amount of time in line. So say your wait was only 30 minutes, but it felt like you waited in line for 45 minutes. That was your guest's temporal processing. Rides per capita is your average number of rides rode per guest throughout the park in the day. So you take all your total ridership in the park, divided by the number of guests, that's your rides per capita. So as a theme park, your goals are really to decrease the temporal processing as much as possible. Decrease the amount of time a guest feels like they've waited in line, and increase your rides per capita as much as possible. Get them on as many rides as possible. So first, to decrease a guest's temporal processing, you have to modify the queue design. That's really what it all comes down to is queue design. There's a lot of different ways you can affect the queue design to decrease this variable. The three ways I really highlighted were engagement, comfort, and information. So when it comes to engaging a guest in a queue, the first big thing is theming. So it has to be detailed enough to notice new things every time. Examples are the Disney and Universal parks execute this very well. Really elaborate theming. It draws your attention away from how long you've been standing in line, distracts you, draws your attention to the theming. And if it's detailed enough, you notice new things every time. So it really draws your attention to that. Another way is video content. Cedar Fair does this with the fun TVs. Six Flags does this as well. But what you really need is deep inventory and constantly coming out with new content. If you wait in a line for one ride and watch all the fun TV episodes, and then you get in line for the next ride and it's the same fun TV episodes, it's not going to continue to distract you and take your attention away from that wait time. And then a third way is through DJs or live entertainment. Cedar Point really used to do this with the DJs and the queues. There's a picture of the Millennium Force DJ booth that used to be there. It's very engaging, but it is costly. And just trying to think of an example of a major ride that still does this. The really only thing that could come to my mind is the Race Through New York starring Jimmy Fallon at Universal. They have an actual show in their queue. And then so the second queue design aspect is comfort. So obviously sunshades and fans. Right? If you're standing in the queue, the sun's beating down on you, you're hot, you're getting dehydrated, you're going to be paying attention to how long you've been standing in line. It's just a simple way, having those sunshades and mister fans that really decreases that guest's temporal processing perceived amount of time in line. Interpersonal interactions is a big thing. So there's two ways, interpersonal interactions within the group you're at the park with. So that's by having your queue rails wide enough so that you encourage your social interaction. You still want it narrow enough to discourage line jumping, but just being wide enough so that you can look at each other and be able to talk, that's really going to help the time pass faster. Another way is switchback queues. So queues that go back and forth, like there and there. Just being able to see other guests, the psychological studies show that it decreases your perceived amount of time. People don't talk to strangers as much as they used to, but really, maybe see another guest. They have a coaster T-shirt. Hey, have you been? How was that ride? So on and so forth. Just those interpersonal interactions. Last way is through lighting, sound, and design. So your colors, your lighting, the design of the queues should all be aesthetically pleasing. If you don't want to, if the design's not aesthetically pleasing, you don't want to be in that space. Psychologically, it's going to really increase your perceived amount of time. Then also the sound should not be overly loud or repetitive. Again, that's going to draw your attention to how long you've been waiting in line. So the last way is through information. Having accurate information about what the wait time will be also affects this. This can be done either through really excellent training with your entrance hosts, your ride operators, so that they're constantly changing manual sign and adjusting the app so that it's always accurate for the guests. Or there's different technological solutions we'll get to here in a second. So the studies show you want to inflate your wait time by about 10 to 15% above the actual time. This is, having it 10%, 15% higher. You obviously wait through the line, and if it's shorter than about 10% shorter than what it was still close enough to be accurate, but it's really going to improve the guest experience to have it shorter than what you expected. Obviously, if it's longer than what you expected, that's really negative for the guest experience. This also helps for wiggle room, if there's a slight delay in operations. And then some existing solutions are Disney does what's called the red card. So they'll give a random guest a card, write down the time they entered in line, and then when they get to the platform, they can record the time it took to get to the platform. And that's a way to test the wait time. The pitfall of that is if it's an hour wait, you recorded the wait time an hour ago. You don't get that instantaneous wait time. Another way is cell phone counters. This is actually something that was tested at Cedar Point. It's just a technology that counts the amount of cell phones around it, cell phone sensors. It is expensive, and also it can be unreliable. There's a lot of newer security features with cell phones that allow it to not be counted. That last way is through people counting cameras, and this is a really valid solution, but you have to install the cameras, wire them up, and have the software set up to count the people. So you guys all signed the non-disclosure agreements on the way in, right? Okay, so I'm gonna get it set up really quick, but we're gonna have our engagement activity. This is just a system I designed to try to estimate the wait time, and it'll all make sense in a second here. All right, first row. Come on the ride. This is our engagement.
Wow.
Yes, this is the entrance down there. This is the platform. So it's set to about 60 riders per hour. I'm sorry, we'll get on the next train. Keep going in, keep going in. All right, I think I set the capacity too high. All right, second row, come on, come on.
Y'all know you want to ride the roller coaster. God.
Interactive.
All right, let me change the capacity really quick.
I love being a guinea pig. Y'all.
This is live prototyping right here.
Can we go ahead and give
Some of this technology is already implemented at Cedar Point. This is a prototype for what to be added to the systems.
All right, you guys can get on ride row 3, please.
Oh, yeah.
Row 4, row 5, row 6, row 7, row 8. There we go. Okay. So the sensors, obviously, so that's why it's counting up. But there's sensors at the beginning, sensors at the end here, and then obviously as you get in line, you have the back 3 rows can join if you want now.
I'm about to ride this roller coaster.
So those 2 sensors obviously count people as they're coming in the queue. Back 2 sensors count people as they're coming out of the queue. And that's how you estimate how many people are.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Zach. Okay, period. Oh, I just spent 90 minutes.
Oh, but now it's going down. Oh, wait.
Right. So as people are getting on the ride, there's less people.
3 seconds.
Okay, the 2-hour wait. Oh, wow. This coaster.
The park is definitely just open.
I don't think I'm a ride anymore since we do that well.
100-minute wait. Can't relate.
So obviously
not
prototype technology, there is lots of fine tuning to be done, but this is just kind of an example of something that can be done to estimate your wait time very well.
All right, so the next part of managing that temporal processing is our secondary queuing. The first type is the pay for priority, such as our fast lane, Universal Express, Genie Plus, and the Flash Pass, seen at multiple different parks. But is everyone aware of these programs? I would say yes, but a poll has said that no, actually. People don't know about certain programs, and obviously these are some of the more well-known ones, but some parks that have implemented the pay for priority methods, some parks, people don't know about them. We also have our virtual queuing. This is facilitated by a smartphone or a cheap device such as our QBot in this picture. Everyone nowadays has a smartphone, so parks are getting more away from rental device and more putting the virtual queuing on the phone. But in the beginning, when people didn't have as much of didn't have smartphones as much, they started out with devices like that. And today, even we have at Universal's water park, they give you a device, that way you're not carrying around your non-water resistant cell phone. So this is a virtual way of standing in what's equivalent to our physical queue line, and guests are alerted when it's time for the ride. So the benefits of virtual queuing is there's more secondary spending, such as buying food, not being in line, buying merchandise, interacting with other guests. Also, virtual queuing, although a lot of parks don't do it, could monetize the priority, the pay for priority, even in the virtual queuing. There's a flexibility, so this can be adjusted for downtime of a ride, as well as no-shows for a virtual queuing system. In most cases, you need to have a virtual queue and a standby queue for the attraction or ride to be at its at max capacity. So there's also slot queuing. This is more of what was seen at Cedar Point in 2020 with the access passes, giving that time slot. Also the old Disney system of fast passes. Obviously, we saw how it was flawed in 2020, how the system could use a little bit of adjustments, even a virtual version of slot queuing. So still with that, the new Genie Plus system, where you get a time slot, come within the 15 minutes or any time after that. It's also often difficult to estimate how many you should give out, as again the downtime and the no-shows adjust what the throughput of the ride is throughout the day. Now, Magic Bands at Disney World were introduced in 2015. They used the RFID and short-range radio to decrease that wait time of some of the hot attractions at Disney World. Now, that also did increase the lines for those not hot attractions, the ones that had the 20-minute or less line wait. So, it's a balancing act. And then Universal's Volcano Bay, as I had mentioned before, has the Tapu Tapu system, where at the entrance of the ride, guests tap their band to join the virtual queuing, and also, which is slot queuing is part of virtual queuing. So they get a time to return and they can come in within that window.
So just some discussion here. What this really shows is that there's room to improve the guest experience and create a more competitive product as parks compete against not other parks, but other entertainment offerings. It's a double-sided coin, so this requires time and investment. But the other side of the coin is, this digital age has created an instant gratification culture where consumers want things now. They don't want to wait in line. And just a few examples here, like Amazon Prime, mobile ordering, DoorDash. It's all this instant gratification culture. And sorry, one thing really quick. I forgot to show. So this is a whole system here. This is like a touch screen that you might see on many of the rides at Cedar Point. It's a Q-Sys touch screen. So what you can do is you can set this to different states. So say the ride goes down mechanically, just press this button here. Confirm Raptor is down mechanical. And let's say this ride's temporarily delayed for maintenance. Now this is an example of a TV that could be at the ride's entrance communicating this to guests. There's also the weather. And then if you're back out. And it would say, since all the guests are out of line, it would say 0. I covered up the sensor for a minute because it wasn't going up. But as everybody would exit the queue, it would go back down to, it would go back down to a 5-minute wait.
Yeah, keep talking back.
Sorry. I love that.
All right, so any questions? John?
Okay, so with like the screen system, could that be implemented to display on the rides fun TVs as well?
Yeah. So I forgot to mention, it can communicate to other softwares. So it can instantaneously communicate that to Parks app, any internal dashboards. You'd be able to get the live wait time, be able to see live the rides up or down, depending on what the ride operator is pressed on the touchscreen. Chloe?
Say the ride does go down and people leave the line. So to count the number of people going out of the line, they have to leave at a certain point of it. If so, how do you stop them from just going under the rails?
Yeah. So a ride like Steel Vengeance, where everybody has to go out the entrance, you'd be able to count them this way. I didn't have time to do, but what I wanted to do is just have a button on the touchscreen where you can change where a ride operator, a bunch of people leave the line, because the ride goes down, you're about to go up. You can change the amount of people in line, and then that'll change the wait time. There.
Now, if for the special occasion that the specific system does perhaps go down during operation, what are some troubleshooting tips or procedures that you would do to not only help still accurately calculate wait time, but also make sure that the guests are not obviously waiting, over a previously stated wait time?
Yeah, so also this is technology that's already on a lot of rides. So like tech services teams and parks and people to fix this. You'd have to have a backup system as well in case something happens. Some parks don't even have any type of digital or analog system at their entrances to communicate this. But you'd have to have a backup system. Maybe some of the smaller rides that don't even have this technology. Just being able to resort back to calling into the main office and getting that wait time updated. Will.
Okay, I need to cut it off. Sorry, it's time for us to wrap up. Thanks, you guys. That was great.
Okay.
Sorry.